I'm William Kumwembe with Business Time. It is a magazine program where we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines courtesy of Old Mutual.
Insuring and saving with Old Mutual means growing crops, growing jobs, growing a future. Creating mutual futures, your money invested for the good of all.
Coming up in the program today, headline inflation U-turns as it hits 28.4% in July. We find out what this means to local consumers and the footing of the country's buying power. And also in the program, Reserve Bank of Malawi sees light in IMF's extended credit facility talks. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome. This is Business Time and my name is William Kumwembe. In our main story in the program today, Malawi's inflationary trajectory took a new twist in July of 2023 as headline inflation, the rate at which commodity prices change at a given time in an economy, rose a bit marginally to 28.4% from 27.3% in June on the back of rising food prices. Figures from the National Statistical Office show that food inflation went up to 39.3% in July from 37.2% in the preceding month. Non-food inflation was seen static at 16%. For a greater part of the year, the headline inflation remained on an upward spiral. It only eased marginally and temporarily in June as food prices went down. Now, what does this mean? We have the whole story in this report.
A visit to a market like this one is no longer a pleasing sight for most consumers. The ugly menace of rising commodity prices is very vivid, and the buying power has eroded. Consumers are feeling the pinch, and they cannot hide it anymore.
We are trying our best, but to no avail. This is our greatest concern. Commodity prices are rising.
Kukwera kwa zinthu ife watipasa mavuto akulu chifukwa pakali panopo ngati nenzimayi ndimapanga ulo business chabwino.
The rise in commodity prices has brought more challenges. We are even unable to buy a maize bag as our businesses, which is the source of income, are affected. We are buying maize in portions to feed our children.
Zikutivuta kwambiri kuti tigule tikukhalira kugula 2 kg mamawa masanaje 2 kg mazulu aje.
Inflation, the rate at which commodity prices change at a given period in an economy, rocketed to 28.4% in July and 27.3% in June. This comes as a local unit, the kwacha, continues losing value against major trading currencies. Also, Malawi, a predominantly importing nation, is susceptible to exogenous shocks and volatility of commodity prices on the international market. Experts say the inflation outlook remains mixed.
Inflation has been flying through the window, in fact. In this quarter, for example, it rose to somewhere above 28%, and that's headline inflation. And what surprised us, and this is, I think, something that many people would not have actually sat down to consider it with some depth. You know, after the last quarter 2, the Monetary Policy Committee sat down and they raised the interest rates by about, I think it was 200 basis points or something. And then when it must have been by, I think that time it was 400 basis points. It is this time around that it has gone up by 200 basis points. Yeah. So when we did that, you know, some things have been noted. Number one is that we have seen that the non-food inflation has gone down to around 17%, down from above 30%. But food inflation remains to be high. So that tells you that the monetary policy action is working, especially on the non-food inflation, in curbing some of the imports that come with that.
At its recent Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the Reserve Bank of Malawi, RBM, revised upwards its annual average inflation target to 29.5%, the second time since Minister of Finance Sostin Gwengwe presented the 2023-2024 national budget to Parliament in March. And in a desperate attempt to contain the inflationary pressure, twice within a space of 6 months, the central bank adjusted upwards its policy rate to 24%.
We must admit that people have come to us and said there is black market that is getting deeper out there, and that this is distorting domestic prices, this is distorting domestic trade and the like.
While most consumers may not comprehend the economic figures and numbers, they are not unaware of the hardships they endure.
Now, maize, the country's staple commodity, has been weighing heavily on the Consumer Price Index, an aggregate basket of goods and services used in computing inflation, as it accounts for about 45%. A recent report by the International Food Policy Research Institute shows that retail maize prices increased by 27% in July. As Feston Malege's reports from Zuzu, there are growing fears that maize prices will continue rising, despite the government moving in to start selling maize through ADMAC. Farmers feel ADMAC is joining the party a little late when prices have already reached at a rate that is unsustainable. More in this report.
Mitengo yachimanga panopa ikukwera adi nkhani yake ndioti nanga si olima makhala ochepa zasiyana ndi nthawi za mbuyo olima anali anthu ochuluka amakwanisa kugula fertilizer pa iwo okha ndiye nthawi zino zakhala zofuta ndalama sizikuoneka moti anthu angakwanise kugula fertilizer kuti wina lisi akhale ndi chokudya. Nopa thini kuno kunzuzu ndi ma 13,000 nthawi yokolola ngati ino sitikuziwa kuti mvula ikangoti yagwa izakhala pa bwanji.
Chimanga chakwera patipose nakuno kuli munda tere mwana munda ndi uwu china unagona munda uwu fachani chifetereza kudula fetereza chimanga muntu chani changalime kumala fetereza.
These are some of the farmers who failed to sell their maize to ADMAC, and they were at the mercy of vendors, simply because the institution that was tasked to conduct such a course, National Food Reserve Agency, could not go as far as Nzondi, Chasato, or Tadeu Chakwira villages in Mzimba district. A few months after the selling, the vendors are back and are selling the commodity at an expected higher price. In July, for example, retail prices of maize increased by 27% and were highest in the southern region. The rise was from around 512 kwacha per kilogram in the last week of June to 650 kwacha per kilogram in the last week of July. This translates to about 32,500 kwacha per bag of 50 kilogram. However, in Mzuzu, the prices were slightly lower at about 20,500 kwacha per 50 kilogram bag. Fears that the prices of the staple grain will continue rising are attached to low production of maize this year, which was necessitated by climatic shocks and late delivery of agriculture inputs under the Affordable Input Program, AIP. Estimates show that maize production has decreased by 5.6% in the 2022-2023 farming season from 3.7 million metric tons to 3.5 million metric tons. In an integrated food security phase classification analysis covering the period between June 2023 and March 2024 by various organizations on food security, they have recommended to the government to stock adequate maize in ADMAC depots to stabilize maize prices. Development commentator Ken Sakala from Synod of Livingstonia Development Arm, SODEV, adds that promoting winter cropping and facilitating timely distribution of inputs under AIP would be of great importance.
I think we need to start thinking of mitigating factors of how hunger can affect people. First of all, what we should do is stock the maize, procure the grain so that people should be secured, put these to be accessible to people, like they should be in the ADMACs, and allow people that they cannot be having that long distances looking for them. Therefore, in that way, even the period where we shall need for food will be reduced, because by then people have access for food. That's number one. Number two, the second thing is we need to change the consumption habits. In Malawi, we are so used that when we want to eat, it's only sima, which is we have eaten. But there might be other foods which can also be taken in such a way that that also can be of great importance to mitigate the hunger issue which is looming in this country. So what happens is that the government made a deliberate effort to have a group of people to be receiving cash, because the poverty levels in Malawi are high, in such a way that if We can give cash, and they can use that cash to procure maize, procure foodstuffs. They will do that. So if they can increase the number of those people receiving social cash, then it will be much better.
It is expected that about 4.4 million people, representing 22% of the country's population, would be food insecure this year.
This Business Time, a magazine program brought to you in partnership with Old Mutual. We'll be right back.
Ku Malawi timanena kuti chuma chili munthaka. Ndipo izi ndizoona. Mutha kuziona zimene paliponse. Dzina langa ndi Chris Gadimani, ndipo ndimayang'anira banja langa pogwira ntchito ku Galamax Macadamia Nut Farm. Zonse zimayambira pa Nazale pano. Timasamalira mphukira kuti tikwanitse kudzala mitengo yambiri. Mitengo iyi ikakula, timasankha mtedza wabwino kwambiri okhaokha. Timafuna kuti mtedza wa Macadamia wa ku Malawi uzidziwika kuti ndi wabwino koposa. Tikakolola kwambiri, timalembanso ntchito anthu ambiri. Ndimakhala onyadira kukhala nawo otenga mbali mu zimenezi.
From the soil comes endless possibilities. That's why Old Mutual is investing for the long term from the ground up. We call this creating mutual futures. Old Mutual, let's do great things every day.
Welcome back. The Reserve Bank of Malawi has said Malawi has made remarkable progress in putting the house in order ahead of second review of the staff monetary program with executive board involvement by the International Monetary Fund, IMF. A successful completion of the program would see Malawi graduating to an upper credit tranche, the extended credit facility. The IMF mission is expected to come to Malawi next month for the second assessment of the program based on the June 2023 target. Briefing reporters in Lilongwe last week, RBM Governor Wilson Banda said significant steps has since been taken by the fiscal authorities to address the unsustainable debt levels and address other challenges the country has been facing.
We are making a lot of progress. With regard to the IMF, specifically the ECF, I would say that we are on course, and we expected that by November of this year we should have a program with the IMF all said and done. We think that the performance through December that was confirmed by the IMF was good, and the indications are that we are also performing well with regard to the targets for end June. That should form a very solid basis for going forward. We'll be having an IMF mission sometime in September, and this mission will essentially basically look at what we have done, how we are performing, and we think that preliminary data that we have on the ground does confirm that we are performing well. So the main message, if I may say, to the nation is that yes, we have gone through a lot as a country, but we think that there's now some light at the end of the tunnel, and that we hope that certainly before the end of the year we should have a program with the IMF, and with the program we expected that fortunes for the private sector would definitely improve. We expected that banks would now be able to do business with their correspondents out there in a more solid way than has been the situation before, where letters of credit can now be confirmed without as much hassle as we had up to now. So yes, we think that there is hope for the nation.
Now, in other business news, for quite some time, small and medium enterprises in the country have been left out of the financial services spectrum, despite comparatively being in numbers. A recent FinScope survey shows that the country has over 1.6 million small and medium enterprises, and creates about 1.8 million job opportunities. Lack of access to finance, access to land, high business operating costs, and low production capacities are some of the major challenges that SMEs in the country have been facing. In this report, Deborah Madea discusses the plight of SMEs in the country and what needs to be done towards addressing the challenges.
Ines Mzimba Nkalamba is a businesswoman. Her core is cross-border trade, where she imports clothes and other items from South Africa and Tanzania for sale in her relatively tiny container shop at Ndirande Market in Blantyre. She has been plying her trade since the year 2001, and on several attempts, she secured loans from some local financial institutions to grow her business. But her experiences remain a thing to forget.
Masiku ambuyo mataulenga mwina analwa kwa mabungu yanga ti World Vision tinali ngapo koma pindu yake sima noti matenza modi bwanji fana ngasi amalipasa miezi yochepa.
I try to secure loans with a number of local financial institutions, including World Vision. But I realized I was not making any profits. All the money I was making was going straight to the institutions.
She is a reflection of the plight of small and medium enterprises, SMEs, faced in the country. There are in numbers about 1.6 million according to the 2019 Malawi FinScope MSME survey and employing about 1.8 million people. It is estimated that MSMEs contribute about 40% of the gross domestic product and 24% of employment, and about 21% of the country's adult population derives their livelihood from the sector. But lack of access to finance, access to land, high business operating costs, and low production capacities are some of the major challenges SMEs continue facing. Chris Mulilani, a salesman at one of the shops that sells men's shoes in Blantyre town, says he had business ideas which died before it was hatched due to lack of seed capital.
Capital is my biggest challenge. Since financial institutions want collateral for one to secure a loan, I do not have anything for myself that I can offer.
SME's Chamber is an umbrella body for small business operators and says the environment remains unconducive for SMEs. In an interview, SME's Chamber Executive Director James Jiuti pointed out the May 2022 currency devaluation, forex and fuel scarcity and effects of COVID pandemic, and lately the Cyclone Freddy among bottlenecks to doing business in the country.
We know that Malawi happens to be an agricultural-based economy. So most of our SMEs are in agriculture. So it starts from planting to harvesting to crop aggregation and then selling. But all these processes have been affected. So the bumper yield that was expected in the south did not happen. And that has had a ripple effect in the other regions, because then there is pressure on the agricultural commodity that is available. Apart from that, then the raw material that's supposed to be used in a lot of small enterprises is simply not available. So it has not been a good 6 months.
The government says its efforts have been deployed towards creating a conducive environment for SMEs operations in the country.
It's a matter of looking at how best we can develop the local industries. I think that's the reason why I said one of my key priorities is one, promotion of local industrialization. In that aspect, we are now looking at how much resources are put into those industries so that we can reach a level where we can say this is an industry that can produce a good quality product and can competitively compete at global or regional market. So I think we need to focus on that one.
From the look of things, apart from access to capital, many SMEs lack necessary skills to remain competitive. It appears a foregone conclusion that it would take a fortune for them to be accorded equal space and opportunity on the landscape.
Now, the Public Committee of Parliament has revealed that theft and mismanagement of public funds continued in government in the 2020-2021 financial year. This came out recently when PAC chairperson Mark Bodoman delivered the committee's independent report to Parliament on government accounts for the year ended June 30th, 2021. Kumwembe reports.
Among other things, the report noted that payment vouchers worth 5.6 billion kwacha were submitted to auditors without the necessary supporting documents, with major culprits being state residences, Parliament, Malawi Defence Force, Ministry of Youth and Sports, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, among others. The report also highlights that revenue-related irregularities continued to prevail, from non-disclosure of revenue in statements, such as at the Department of Mines, visa revenue collected by embassies not accounted for, e-visa and e-passport revenue not well managed by the Department of Immigration, usage of revenue at point of collection, especially by police stations, and many others, with a total of 5.3 billion kwacha in queried amounts. This is what PAC chairperson Mark Bodoman told Parliament.
In the 2021 audit report, which I am presenting now, a number of recurrent issues were singled out by the committee as follows. Number 1, documents not submitted for audit. Number 2, miscellaneous irregularities. 3, overfunding and overexpenditure. 4, revenue irregularities. 5, failure to perform reconciliations. 6, financial statement irregularities. 7, procurement irregularities. 8, project management and construction related flaws. Number 9, misallocation of public funds. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the committee established that there had been some obvious violations of the legal instruments as well as procedures that govern the management of public financial resources. The most violated legal instruments were the Public Finance Management Act as amended in 2022, the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act 2017, the Public Audit Act 2003, the Public Audit Amended Act as amended in 2018, the Malawi Public Service Regulations, the Taxation Act, and the Pension Act. Major observations by the committee. Revenue management irregularities. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, Treasury Instructions of 2004, Section 5.7.2i states that sound cash management includes pursuing the debtors with appropriate sensitivity and rigor to ensure that amounts receivable by the government are collected and banked promptly. The committee noted serious mismanagement of revenue collected from a number of MDAs. The committee observed that despite strongly cautioning the executive on the revenue management irregularities in its previous reports to the House, the revenue-related irregularities continued to prevail in the MDAs.
During a recent engagement of government directors on amended land laws, Secretary to the President and Cabinet Colin Zamba urged the directors to deliver results that Malawians are waiting for, calling it a shift from business as usual. Recently, Secretary to the Treasury McDonald Mafutomwale told Times that some of the problems have been tackled since the implementation of the new Integrated Financial Management System, IFMIS.
The new IFMIS is really rolling well because what we expected from the new IFMIS, I think I could say we are getting it. One, it was an issue of controlling expenditures so that we should limit creation of arrears, which are a big problem. We are still paying a lot of arrears from the past fiscal regime, but the IFMIS itself, apart from controlling expenditures, it is also giving us reports, and we can clearly see where something is wrong, and then necessary actions taken quickly so that we avoid some loss and some slippages or some loss in terms of public finance. So the IFMIS, especially on the reporting aspect, I think it is helping us quite a lot, because on a daily basis at least we know, or at least somebody can know that look at this expenditure, it is becoming unusual, and can you look at it? Then once we do it, then we can see that at least some of the unwanted activities could be removed and stopped.
When all is said and done, there is need to instill discipline among public officials to avoid recurrent public finance management challenges that are uncovered in the Auditor General's report every year.
Well, with that story, we've also come to the end of today's edition of the program Business Time. It is a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country, courtesy of Old Mutual. On behalf of the entire production team, my name is William Kumwembe. But always remember, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.
Brought to you by Old Mutual. Creating mutual futures, your money invested for the good of all.